In one of the biggest surprise moves of the NFL draft so far, the Detroit Lions take running back Jahmyr Gibbs out of Alabama with the 12th pick. So, Dave, 12 picks into the NFL draft. We have two running backs off the board and no wide receivers. It's just an absolute turn of events based on what we've seen in recent NFL drafts. But let's talk about Jamir Gibbs going to a very crowded backfield as of now, joining David Montgomery and DeAndre Swift. This is not exactly the best destination for Jamir Gibbs right now, but what do you think about his outlook for the 2023 campaign?
For the 2023 campaign, I'm nervous because the Lions can afford to take it easy with Jamir Gibbs. He's not going to be wedged into a primary role. He's going to have to earn that. And Montgomery is somebody that I know this coaching staff liked a lot. We've heard Dan Campbell talk glowingly about Montgomery when he was with the Bears. And then they just went and spent for him. And it seems a little strange that they would spend for Montgomery and then get Gibbs while they still had DeAndre Swift, unless this coaching staff decided that they're just done with DeAndre Swift and they're going to go with Jamir Gibbs in that role. That would make some sense. We could talk about the draft capital that they spent. We could talk about like what his upside would be, and we will. But for now, I'm kind of scratching my head at the pick, and I kind of don't want to take Jamir Gibbs unless it's toward like 26th running back off the board, something like that. And that's in PPR.
All right, a lot to digest here. So let's start with the idea of the three guys staying on the team. So DeAndre Swift is still with the Detroit Lions. Where are you drafting Montgomery? Where are you drafting Gibbs? Where are you drafting Swift?
I can't feel as good about Montgomery as I did coming into today. And I think I kind of liked him as like a round 3-4 type of player. Probably more 4 than 3. I got to sink him at least one round now that we know that he's not going to have a shot at being like Jamal Williams plus. Now he might just be Jamal Williams, and that means he's got to score a lot of touchdowns to really hammer it home for fantasy. Still would take him ahead of Jamir Gibbs, but it's not going to be particularly high. I'm thinking around maybe like toward the end of round 5 on David Montgomery.
Okay, and that's assuming all three guys are still there. If one guy leaves, where would you take David Montgomery?
Same thing. I'm assuming that DeAndre Swift will not have a big role, whether he stays on the team or not.
All right, so Jamir Gibbs now second Lions running back coming off the board for fantasy managers. Where does he go in PPR leagues, half PPR, non-PPR?
Yeah, I'm thinking that he'll end up being a number 3 fantasy running back in PPR, probably in half PPR too. People will be excited about what his upside is, and maybe the Lions do make out with him eventually taking over as the lead back. Look, let's face it, David Montgomery, great hammer back, great thunder back, not a lightning guy, not an explosive guy, and we've seen it time after time in the NFL where the lightning guy, that speedster, ends up outperforming the thunder back, but it might take Gibbs a little bit of time. Remember, he shared at Alabama too, so I wouldn't expect him to take over and be just a dominant running back in Detroit. So I would temper expectations a little bit. Let's call him running back 27, 28, right around where I had Swift coming into today. That's a guy that I'm taking in round 6 or round 7, probably closer to like right at that line between 6 and 7.
I can't do it that early if Swift is still on the team, but if they move on from Swift, I think that's the exact right spot for him, just knowing that he could step into that role. He had 44 catches at Alabama, actually led the team in receptions, which is surprising for a running back, but an electric player. I actually got a chance to speak with the guy who trained him for the combine, Tony Villani at CBS Sports. They work out together. He worked out down here in Fort Lauderdale heading into the combine, and Tony told me about him. He said he's one of those guys that'll probably start as a specialty back, but once you see the speed and he hits one of those, 1 or 2 of those home runs, you could see him take over the backfield, which is certainly not out of the realm of possibility, knowing that, again, Montgomery a little bit older, obviously, as you said, which I agree with, not as explosive. Gibbs doesn't necessarily profile as a first or second down guy on a consistent basis. I don't think he's going to be a 280, 300 carry guy, but a 200, 225 type of guy, carry guy. I think that could certainly be something that he grows into eventually. Yeah. And then what we could do as a pass catcher. And again, we did see the Lions throw the ball to DeAndre Swift at least early in the season before the injury started to become a problem. He definitely has that upside, but I would be making offers tonight right now, depending on, how frustrated you could find a DeAndre Swift fantasy manager, because he could end up in a situation that could be absolutely fantastic. I mean, if he goes to these running back needy teams, if I'm Philadelphia, I'm probably on the phone with the Lions right now trying to see if I could pry DeAndre Swift away for, something pretty cheap, 5th round pick, 6th round pick. Something that that is minimal. He's in a contract year, so you're gonna have to, pay him if he's not just a 1-year rental. But knowing these teams that have a need at the running back position for a young guy that still has a ton of talent and a ton of potential. That's the type of move I think you should be making in your dynasty leagues tonight. So explore that option. You don't have to probably give up a lot to get DeAndre Swift, but if he ends up in one of these situations, Dave, he could be really still a great fantasy asset.
For the games that he's healthy for, absolutely. And we know that he can still get the job done as a pass catcher. We know that he's got good speed. It's just a matter of him being healthy that teams are going to be skeptical of. And that's why I think even if he were to go to a team like Philadelphia or, call it Dallas, it could be any team. Cincinnati is looking
Denver.
for a new passing downs back. Denver is a great call.
Miami.
There's a chance that he could, still get around 4 or 5 catches in a game. But how many carries can we realistically expect for him to get when even a new coaching staff would know that he's a little bit brittle and that one bad hit could knock him out for 3 or 4 games? Do you do the same thing in Dynasty, by the way, with David Montgomery? Do you make offers for him?
I think you do if you're a contender. I mean, the difference would be obviously that there's, I would hope, I guess they're around the same age, they're a year apart in terms of their draft capital, but DeAndre Swift feels like he should have a little bit more mileage on his tires, just knowing that he's missed some time, doesn't have the same physical style. The hope would be, though, I think from what we just saw from Josh Jacobs and Saquon Barkley, guys that have dealt with injuries the last couple of years in a contract year and having these big, tremendous seasons, maybe DeAndre Swift could have something similar to that. But I think, it just depends. You tell me right now that the Vikings move on from Dalvin Cook and, probably doesn't happen in the division, but, and find a way to get DeAndre Swift there. Or, again, the Bengals, they move on from Joe Mixon. Alvin Kamara suspended for the majority of the season or, more than 6 games. And maybe they reunite Jamal Williams and DeAndre Swift together in New Orleans. We don't know when Javonte Williams is going to come back. Denver, that situation. There are a lot of teams that could use a running back like DeAndre Swift. Imagine pairing him with Rachaad White. Maybe we get this Bucs running game going and he gets an opportunity there. So there are teams that have needs for a running back. And again, I agree with you. It's not going to take much to get him off the roster there in Detroit at this point. I'm sure based on what the Lions have done so far in the NFL draft, acquiring more draft capital would be something that they would need given that DeAndre Swift's role is completely minimized. Really quick before we wrap this up, rookie only drafts. Where is Jahmyr Gibbs going?
Because I think he does have potential, like you said, to be a 220, 240 touch back down the line. It could be as soon as next year. The David Montgomery contract is not prohibitive at all. I think you look at him as a top 6 pick in 1 QB, and then you push him back about 3 or 4 spots in 2 QB. So call him a top 9 pick in Superflex in 2 QB.
We could get the scenario we talked about where, Zach Charbonnet goes to a team that has a clearer path to touches.
Sure. One of the teams we talked about for Swift.
Yep. Chargers, we could see, a situation where he just ends up in one of those teams. And, this was the scenario that I think some Jahmyr Gibbs, Devy managers were looking at and saying, I don't want to see him go to a team in his rookie campaign where he's going to share. And as of now, could be sharing with 2 guys. Hopefully DeAndre Swift, not a member of the Lions for long. And he's only sharing with David Montgomery. So we went a little bit longer on this one, but a big surprise. Lions taking Jahmyr Gibbs, 12th overall, second running back off the board. And now Jahmyr Gibbs, a member of the Detroit Lions. All right, for Dave, I'm Jamie. Thanks for watching. Keep us locked in here with your Fantasy Football Today YouTube page covering the NFL draft all throughout every pick.